Okay, so yeah, let me start again. So yeah, uh, so now we are from this point on, we are splitting 162 and 168, right? So those were in both classes. We'll have to join both, but otherwise you can, join the respective class that you enrolled in. Um, and yeah, yeah. Anything else, Professor?
No, it's today's our like last lecture, right? Flex.
Yeah, yeah. Flex. Yeah, today's the last lecture. Yeah.
Professor, I want to be honest, I have never used Flex. I was looking into it after you mentioned it.
Yeah, Flex is actually great. So yeah, let me give you a little bit introduction on Flex, right? So HTML has been always difficult language, right? That's a probably you can learn easily, you can learn JavaScript very easily, but to master HTML is very difficult. And that's because you know you have CSS and then you have HTML and then mixing them two and then achieving what you really want to achieve uh, can be difficult sometime, right? Um, to my experience, I started learning HTML maybe, I don't know, 15 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. And uh, it was very primitive back then. The browsers were very primitive and all that stuff, right? So writing mostly aligning element was most difficult. So for example, let's say if you have a product, right? Uh, let's say if you have an e-commerce site and you have product that you want to display, bunch of product you want to display. Now initially you were expecting, let's say, two products, right? So you would space them in a such way that they are uh, equal distance apart, right? Then your boss say, oh, we'll have a third product. So when you do that, right, you have to say, okay, I want this product to be, you know, 50 pixel from here, 50 pixel from there. Remember, in those days there was no um, responsive design, right? Which means it's a fixed screen and everything, right? Responsive came in much later. So I remember spending so much time in just fixing all those tiny bugs. What happens when you introduce a new element, then everything gets crowded, and everything that you assumed kind of goes out of the picture, right? Then came Bootstrap from Twitter. What Bootstrap did was it kind of solved the problem, but you have to use Bootstrap to because it was a native, right? It was an um, built-in functionality in CSS and HTML. So that was, but it was great, right? So then the people who build this HTML, like write all the rules for HTML, they realize that this is really important. So they actually came up with Flex. And Flex means flexible, which means you don't really have to specify things. You can say align this way, and it does it automatically. And that's the beauty of it. So let me start with, let me share my screen quickly. Are we going to open CodePen? Okay. And then let me share my screen. So today I will teach you HTML in probably 1 hour, and you can do a lot of things with it. Okay. Uh, this is usually an eye-opening how much you can do with this, because people just hate HTML. Uh, so uh, let's first understand the different elements in HTML, right? One of the main elements is div, right? Div is a block, So I'm going to explain to you what is the old style does. So what is a block? Anyone know what a block is? If you play Lego, right? If you play Lego, you have a Lego block, right? So it only works if you put it on the top of each other, right? So that's a block. So by default, uh, most HTML elements behave like a block, okay? Um, and there is a property called display, and the display property drives the behavior of the element. And each element has its own default display property, which defines whether I want to be a block or inline. Inline means side by side, and block means on the top of each other, right? So div is a block element. So if I want to know much about it, what I would do is if I inspect this, and then you see here, I can see display block, right? Which means no matter what I do, it will always uh, put the next element on top of each other, right? Um, so this is important to understand. Uh, anyone know an element where I can put side by side? Uh,
Paragraph?
paragraph is also a block. Uh, so it's a P element, right? Right, let's see. And to know, usually you would just click here and then click on the element, right? So you can see it's a display block. Because paragraph also, you have a one paragraph and then bottom another paragraph and another paragraph like that, right? The non-block element would be inline element.
It's not spam. No.
Yeah, it's a span. Yeah, so span is an inline element. So if I do span, right, it's, I have to go and click on here, and I usually have to go to computed. You see display inline here? So it's an inline element, which means if I have another one, it's gonna be side by side, right? This is the most important thing. It's a block and this. Okay. Second thing is, if I style the span, for example, so if I want to style span, I can do two ways. I can either say, I can add some ID or a class or something to that element, and I can say, style this class or style this ID, or I can say, style all the span elements with certain style. So let's say if I add a border, which is very important, uh, let's say 1 pixel, solid, red, you would notice that it only occupies the space that it needs, right? That's a characteristic of a span because it doesn't have it only occupies the what it needs. Because in order to for something to put next to you, you can't have the entire space, right? Otherwise, nobody can sit next to you, right? If you take the whole class, nobody can sit next to you. So by nature, inline elements have this behavior. Contrary to that, if you have a div, um, um, you can see, okay, I'm gonna put the div here, which means style all the divs with this. You can see it occupies the entire space, which makes sense, okay? It doesn't look like when you look at it, but if you add a border, you can see that nothing can sit next to it because it occupies the whole space, okay? So inline element and a block. There are two different ones. Block occupies the whole space horizontally, and you can place element on top of each other, like Lego blocks. And inline elements are where you can put elements next to each other. Okay. Now, this was an old way of doing things. So newer way, HTML folks realize that mostly people want to put element next to each other, not on the top of each other. So they build flex. So there is another, and the way flex works is you need to, in order for flex to work, you need to create a container. So from here you can code with me. Okay, so I'm gonna create an open and closing div. Okay, and then inside I will have two divs. So one, and then okay. So let me format this. Okay. So so I've created a container class. So let's create this let's call this a parent, and I'm going to add class to it so I can style it accordingly, because we don't want to style all the divs the same way, right? So I'm going to add a class. So I can say class equal to parent, and this one I can say class equal to child. Okay. There is no change here, obviously, because I have set this to div. So I'm going to remove that. Okay, now what I'm going to do is flex works within the parent and child relationship, which means I can say to the parent that everything inside me, all my children, arranged the certain way, right? So in order for do that, I have to call parent a flex. So what I would do is I would say class. Whenever you style a class, you would say dot parent. So this I'm styling class parent, right? So I would use a dot notation, those who don't know. And then inside, I can style the parent. Now, remember the display property? By default, this is a block because the div is a block, right? So I'm going to say display and then flex. Okay. Look what happened to this, guys. They changed a step. They changed the dimension. It's no longer behave, even though it's a div, it no longer behaves like a div, right? So basically, I told the parent that all your children's gonna have behave in a flex manner. So always, if you want your children to behave a certain way, you say display flex, and it automatically behaves this way. Any question? Let's try this out. Okay, let's
So
try
what
this out.
happens if we use it with span? Nothing?
Now
It
let's
stays
try
the
it.
same?
Let's try it. Well, span is already. Let's use it differently because span is automatically inline anyway, right? So I would not know if it, if it changes behavior, right? So let's say if I use span. Okay. So I don't see change in the behavior. I'm also gonna have the same style. Okay. And also let's add some border. So I would say child border 1 pixel solid red. I always add red so that you can see things more clearly. Okay, so by default, now they are inline. right? So they are always side by side. This is the behavior of flex. But I can change it. So you can say flex direction. This is more meaningful, right? I can say whether I want to have a row or a column. So if I say row, so by default it's a row, right? You can see it's a single row. If I change it as a column, it becomes like that, right? So you control it the way you like it. Even though, remember, span supposed to have a different behavior. In this case, it's behaving, has forgotten its own behavior and is behaving the way as parent wants it to, right? Which is very important. Any question here? Okay. So flex direction, you can have a row, you can have a column. A row means you can see it's a one row. Column is you can see it's a one column, right? That's how you should define it. Then you can have a row reverse. This is kind of interesting. Row reverse actually takes everything from the left side to the right side, but it mirrors it. If you think of it, right? Mirrors it, which means one is on the far right compared to far left, right? So it kind of flips the whole thing like this. That's row reverse. You can have a column reverse. Column reverse doesn't put it at the bottom. It just reverses its order, right? So instead of 1, 2, 3, it's 3, 2, 1. It kind of flips the column, right? Okay. Let's. There is a website called Flex Froggy. So let's have a fun thing rather than learning from here. We can. I'm gonna put this website here. We're gonna learn a fun way. Flex Froggy. Okay, so the idea is, so I have a frog, and I guess this is the leaf. So I want the frog on the leaf, okay, by chaining this style. So how does this frog goes from here to here? Why when I hit a run, the CSS doesn't show up? Oh yeah, are you talking about the code pen? Oh, you want to see this CSS here? I don't know which.
For the result.
Say it again. Sorry.
For the console log, I didn't see the CSS part like this.
Okay. Well, I'm assuming you're looking for. So what you should do is you can right click. Okay, so let's close this first. And then what you should do is right click on here and then say inspect, right? And then let's say if I want to inspect this element, I would take this guy and then click on here and I would see this here, right? You would see, so you would see the style that you've applied. So I can see the child, right? If I want to see more, I can go to computed and I can see everything pretty much. Here you would see display property, which was block originally, but it has overwritten by flex. Okay. Is this what you were looking for? Sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right. So let's go back to the flex froggy. Okay, so there is a content called justify content. So let's try here first. So justify content, again, we are operating in the parent right now. So let's say if I want to, let's say I'm just going to do row here for now. And I'll show you, and then you can apply that to flex froggy. So I want to justify the content. So what I would say is justify, let's see, what was that? Justify content. Okay. And then I can say start means it's on the left side. If I want to put it a right side, I can say end. Okay, you can see in this case, remember the flex row reverse was kind of flipping it. This one is not flipping, it just moves from the right to left and left to right. Okay, so start means left, always remember. Right means end. I don't know why they wanted these complications, but this is what it is. I would have used right and left. But anyway, so that's that. Then there is another one called you would see something called center. Center is very important, right? Center puts everything in the center. Okay. Again, you're operating from the parent. You're saying the parent, all my children I want in the center. When I say start, all my children on the left side. When I say end, all my children on the right side. When I say center, all my children. So they're clustered, right? But what if I want them to split, and I want them to align such that they have space between? Okay, so for that, I can say space between, and it puts a maximum space between them. So it puts them, it has equal space between them, right? So the space between 1 and 2 is the same as a space between 2 and 3. All right. And what if I want a space on the side? Then I can say space around, right? So you can see the words itself. You can guess what it means, right? So if I say space around, then it puts some space around on the right and the left side. But the space around is actually half the size of what you have space between. So let's say if this was let's say 500 pixel, then on the left and right, it's 250. Okay, so let's try this. So space between, have equal space between, but no space around. Space around has half the space around, right? And then lastly, there is one called, I think it's called space. Let's see. Space evenly. So I would say space evenly. Okay. And evenly actually puts equal space around everything on the side and the in between. Okay. So remember, start is on the left, end is on the right, center is the center, space between means you have equal space between but nothing around. Space around has half the space around, and space evenly, which means all the equal spaces around and at the edge. Any questions? Now we know this, we're gonna put this froggy here. So what would you use here? Start, end, center, space between, space around, or space evenly? Any ideas? This poor froggy is lost and it needs to go in his little lotus paddle, I guess. So the property is justify content, by the way. So justify dash content, and then you can use one of these to put the froggy here.
It's
If you don't
flex
know,
end.
yeah, flex end, right? Because end is right. Right now it's at start. This is the default position, right? So flex end, right? And voila, the frog is happy. All right, let's go to the next one. Oh, okay. So what would you use here? And if you don't know, just keep trying to see, which one works. Focus on where the lotus leaves are, right? So you have 5 options: start, flex end, center, space between, space around. Yep, that's right. So justify content is center, right? Because you want to, so anytime that they're clustered together, it's either flex end, flex start, or center, right? Because they are all together. Anything that with space around has to be space apart, right? Okay, let's go to the next one. What about this one? But as I said, if you don't know, just try a bunch of stuff, right? Okay, let's try. So because you can see space, it has to be something with a space, right? So display, oh, sorry, not display. Justify content. Let's say if I do flex end, it's gonna go that way. And center, again, it's not center because I have a space. So it's one with a space, right? So I'm gonna first try space around. and it works, right? The tricky part here is that you can see there's a half. Here you can't see what's the distance is, but I can assume that it is a half of what's in between. So that's how I'm gonna see it. All right. And yeah, this one looks like space between, right? Because I don't see any space on the right or left side. This probably might be the padding that they have added. So justify content is space between, right? All right, so we're gonna have a new item called align item. So this one we looked at on a vertical side, sorry, horizontally, right? What about aligning vertically? So I want something on the top, I want something on the bottom, right? How do I do that? So one way to do this is using flex align items. So there are 5 properties. Again, they are the same thing. So start means at the top when you align top and bottom, right? End is bottom. Center is obviously center. Stretch is a little tricky, so we're going to look at it later on. But in this case, looks like this is a start, right? So if I do align items and then flex start, right? Let's see what happens. Oh, sorry, end, right? Because it's frogs are up on the top and the leaves are here, so it's supposed to be end, right? Actually, it's pretty straightforward. Once you do few, you can see. So this is interesting. What if I want to align something right in the middle, right? Which means I need to have a justify center, justify content center. So I'm first vertically centering it, and then I'm horizontally centering it with align items, right? So I need to use both justify content equal to center, align item equal to center, right? So content is center. And so when I did that, you can see frog is now in the middle. Then I need the frog to be right in the middle here as well. So I can say align items is also center. So you can see how you can do a lot of different combinations using this too, right? Okay, let's do this one. Again, you need to use 2 properties. One is justify content and align item. This is level 7. Whoever designed this website is just a brilliant, because this, you know, it's like a kid's game, but it's gamified, right? Which means you can really um, learn from it. Yep. Any question, by the way? All right. So this one is obviously we want this to be bottom, which means it has to be align items flex end, right? Okay. And then I want them I want to space them, let's say, so this should be not space between, this is space around, right? Because I can see space around. So justify content space around, right? All right, and remember we learned about the space, the flex direction. So the direction is, we have rows, columns, row reverse, and column reverse, right? So this one, so the way to identify is, if it's in a single row, it's a row. If it's on the right side, but remember the, like justify content, you can move right and left, but the order doesn't change. But when you do row reverse, it actually flips. It's a mirror effect, right? So the green would go this side, yellow would go here, and so on and so forth, right? So flex direction is going to be row reverse. Right? This one looks like a simple column because I'm not flipping, right? Which means flex direction is column, right? Okay, next one I'd let you guys do. Okay, this one should be interesting. This is the 10th one. Let me know what is the solution here. Here you have to use the combination of flex direction and justify content. Oh, we have a young student in the class. So in order to see it, right, you can always see that I have a red here and then the green frog is here, right? Which means I need to reverse the order. So, reverse comes in the picture. Something is reversing, right? So, again, if you practice this a lot, there are not many. So if you practice this a lot, you would get it. Okay, so this should be flex direction. It should be. It's still in a row, right? But it's a reverse. This is a tough one. So if I do that, it goes this side, and then I have to justify content to move it on this side. right? So it was a little tricky. So by just looking at it, what do you think it should be? Anyone? So you need direction and then content, right? So direction wise, always think of direction first. So this is a row. I need a column, right? And I can see the order is not going to change, right? So it's definitely a column. So once I do that, it's going to go like this. And then I need an end. So yeah, just a flex direction is column, definitely, right? So let's try that. Flex direction is column, right? Now justify content. No, sorry. Justify content. Is say end, yeah. Because see the combination of this, it gets tricky, right? So you need to practice this, a few times to get this. The idea is, you know, you have a bunch of elements that you want to arrange on it's called layouting, basically. This is the most difficult part with CSS. You can find out on Google how to add a border or change a background color, or things like that, right? Which is pretty easy. But to align things the way you want it is the most difficult part. So Flex solves that issue. Okay.
Well, I thought with the justify content and it will push them to the right. I was
So
thinking
that
Yeah.
that is a trick, because that's a trick. Now, so with the flex direction is tricky, right? So when you change the direction, uh, that so basically your vertical you made your vertical your horizontal,
Yeah.
or your horizontal your vertical. That's why.
Yeah.
So yeah, so see, you will have a situation where you wanted a specific arrangement. Then you can say, okay, how do I achieve this? Right now, you will rarely have situation like this. Mostly you want to arrange in a horizontal, vertical in a simpler way.
Yeah.
So yeah. Let's say, this one, uh so always apply the direction first, right? Because that could change the way. So flex direction. So you can see it's a reverse, right? So column reverse, maybe. Okay. So now red is on the top. So I got the reverse. And then justify content. I want to be so when it goes like this, right? I think it's a flex start. Let's see. I could be wrong. Oh, it's end actually. Yeah, because when you have to look at vertically, it's like this, right? So uh that way, yeah. Oh, sorry, my bad. It's not actually
The space
and
between.
it's space between. Yes, sorry. Space between. Yeah. Okay. Um, so I mean, you can do that at home. Uh, and there are so many different combination of things, right? Let's move on to here. Like, how do we? Another thing would be, let's say if I add too many of these. Oops, I think I added. I forgot I just used div, so I'm just gonna do this. Okay. And then let's say that space between. All right, so you can see it automatically aligns itself. So you don't really have to. What happens when it can't? Let's say when the space between cannot, it's 0. What happens? It it they're all touching each other, right? And then the it doesn't do anything after that. You can see, right? Which is the right behavior. Once you are so tight that there's no more space in between, right? You just don't do anything. You don't overlap on each other, right? So this is the right behavior. But I think it's what's called wrap. It's called flex wrap. I think that's forgot if this is the right one. Okay, let me check. Oh, it's flex wrap. Flex wrap is wrap. Okay. So I put it wrong way. Flex wrap is, so you can wrap it or you don't wrap it, right? So if you wrap it, see what happens. It gives you a second row, and then it's doing that space between. So each row is trying to do the space between, right? By default, it doesn't wrap, but when the element goes more than your container, it starts wrapping if you put as a wrap. And there's a wrap reverse, which is kind of weird. You never want to do wrap reverse because it flips the whole thing, right? But if I put if I don't have a like justify content, right? In that case, it would wrap nicely, like this. And it creates basically a new line, right? So this is an important property. And if it's a column, okay, column would have scroll, right? So column, nothing happens because you have scroll, right? So there is no wrap, even if you apply. So that's pretty much all properties that I wanted to cover. But let me give you resources. Flexbox. This is a great documentation on Flex. It's a complete guide to Flex, and it's really fun to look at. You can see all the you can actually set the priorities on children also. You can set an order, so each item I can say, oh, this needs to be first, even though I've set A, B, C, D, but let's say D I want it to be in the middle and A I wanted somewhere else. You can set that way as well, right? So you can also change the size. So for example, you can have a row, so when there are, if you stretch it, the second element would go faster than the other two, right? You will have a situation in your menu, top menu, where you want the middle part to grow faster, and then the right and the left part to just stay where it is, right? So this is a great way to do that. Similarly, you have a shrink basis. Try all of this stuff. It's it's pretty fun. They have all kind of different tricks that you can use, and it's not that many. So now that you have learned flex, let's understand how do you actually align everything in your. Let's say if I were to build something like CodePen, okay. Now we learned about these techniques, right? But you must be wondering, how do I apply all these techniques if I were to build something like this, right? Because all this stuff, you need to create containers. So let's quickly go over how would you build this. So let's say if I want to build a CodePen, then what I would do is, let me open quickly the notepad. Okay. Okay. I'm going to share this. Okay. So first, when I look at it, I want to look at the overall structure. So I can clearly see the moving parts here, right? So there's a header, right? There's a middle part, which is this, and then there's this. So what I would do is I would create 3 columns. Sorry, I would create a column with 3 rows, right? So the way I would do is I would create the header, right? Then the middle part. So I will have a parent, and I would say, and then you can also you can provide width here, right? Now, in this case, if I squeeze it, it's kind of dynamic, right? But my header stays the same. This guy always stays the same, right? So in this case, what is happening is when you squeeze, this guy stays the same, this shrinks, and all that stuff. Okay. So in the header, how would I build this one? Again, think of this way. Let's say if you have a cupboard for putting crockeries, your plates, and all that stuff, right? You don't just have a one giant cupboard and you can just put some plates here because it would fall apart, right? So you need to create compartments. So Flex lets you build all those compartments, right? And then within the compartments, you can arrange your item using the Flex properties, right? Even the compartment itself, you are arranging using the Flex, but then the item inside. So what I would do is for the header, I would create 2 things, one on the left, one on the right. So I would have 2 elements, and they are going to be what kind? Justify content what? Any ideas?
Star or
Said,
tangent?
sorry, I didn't hear you. Can you say it again?
I just said a star or tangent.
And start no, and no. What I would do is I would have 2 elements, right? So this element, and I would say this, the whole element, right? Containers. So I would put them space space between, right? Which means no space around, right? So this is how I do. I would have 2 elements. Okay, let me change its color. So I would have two elements. One is here, and one is here. I need a little bigger, so maybe, you know, like this. Maybe this one is a little shorter than this because I have buttons here, right? And so I would put them arranged it like they are space apart. Oh, sorry, space between, right? Then I have all these buttons. So buttons, so inside this container, I'm going to put all the buttons. So how do I arrange them? Justify content what? So I have this container, right? I need those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 buttons. How do I put them?
Is at the end.
Yeah, you put it at the end, right? So the way you put it is right? Let's say your boss said, oh, you need to add another button. No problem. It's not going to change the alignment because you're going to add it here, right? That's it. Obviously, you don't want too many buttons, you know, but you have enough space here, right? So this is called, you know, justify content flex end. Okay. Okay. Now let's look at this area. So this one, I need to. Also, I wanna. This one, how do I do that? So think of break this thing into multiple things, right? So I have two items, the logo and this whole area, right? I want this to be start, right? So the way I do is I would put it in start, a flex start, right? Because they're both gonna be on the left side, right? So here's my logo and here's that other area. Now this one I would make it a little longer because this holds. This one, then I have a column, right? Flex column because I have two, right? So what I would do is right inside, I would say I have right like this, right? And then this one has two things inside, right? You have a text and a that button, so you can arrange that here, right? So this is how you can break your entire application into a smaller pieces and you can control it. So things don't fall apart, right? And you can see the use cases, you know, left, right, center, you know, uh, and you know, you will learn some other ones, right? Um, so, you know, pretty much all we learn here, you can apply all of those rules. But first you need to take whatever your design is into breaking to smaller pieces and then smaller pieces and smaller pieces, right? To a point where you can control the arrange things. So imagine these are your dishes, this is your cutlery and all that stuff, right? It's not gonna fall apart, right? So that's what you want. And Flex lets you do that. So, and you don't have to worry about the spacing and all that stuff, right? Because it automatically arranges itself. So if you have a new element, it will automatically arrange it. Any questions?
What property would we use to make them stay left?
Justify content flex end, right? So let's look at that. So let's say, first of all, instead of column, we have a row, right? And right now they're staying, all of them. Let's say, imagine these are the buttons, right? And I wanted them to stay left. Then I would add justify content flex end, right? They all stay left. Yeah. So the idea is to, you know, break your application into smaller pieces. That's a skill, right? When you get a design, you know, a lot of people are in a design class, right? When you get a design, something to build, you first, uh, let me turn on the light. It's just too dark in here. Um, when you get a design, right, from your designer, and you need to build this, right? So what you would do is you would take the design and just to create those containers, and then go deeper as possible, right? And break everything into columns and rows, right? The way we did it, right? So even though it looks kind of somehow put into place, but I would break it into columns and rows, right? And then once I break them into columns and rows, then I can clearly see how to arrange them inside. It could be a left, or it could be right, or it could be middle, you know, whatever. Mostly it's a right or left. And sometime, you know, space between. Yeah,
I have a question about the color.
sure.
So the div child is marked as border solid red. Why are the other divs, like the parents, also colored?
Parent.
Like 1, 2.
Oh, they're not parent.
Oh,
Parent,
because
yeah,
they're
parent
like
is
all
this, yeah.
child.
All child. So if I
I
wanna
oh, I see.
color parent, let's say
Oh, there is
border.
like no parent at all, right?
Yeah, I mean there's a parent, but I haven't styled the parent, right? So
Mm.
if I add, let's say, border to parent, uh, let's say put blue or something. Now this is the parent, right? Yeah. So you can say, now you can clearly see it's flex end, right? Because they're
I
all
think it's
staying.
just originally there were like words with parent, like 1 or 2, but then you probably removed them.
No, there was always one parent, and then all the ones were children. Um, I don't think there were, because there was only one parent here, right? I think I had something like this initially. Because you only can do, see, all the styles are applied to parent, right? A flex child, flex. There is something that you can apply to children as well. So let's say if I want certain child to be, you know, rearrange the children, or flex. Remember grow and all that stuff, which I'm not going to cover in the class. You can learn this by yourself. But um, you can say, you know, I want this to grow faster than the other two when I squeeze, right? Um, you can do that as well. It's very useful when you um, let's take an interesting example from here. Maybe flex grow. Okay, so flex grow 4. Okay, for that I have to add another. So let's say middle child, right? And I would say flex grow is 4. Okay. What if I just give width 100%? Okay. Oh, I need to apply this. Okay, let me find it a better example. Maybe it's not applying somehow. Flex grow example. Okay, so here's the demo. So I have 4 containers. So it's a similar thing. Oh, you have to, okay, so all they are all items. Okay. And then container is a parent basically, right? And then item. Oh, what it did, it's a first item, second item, and it actually given its so uh the third item is grows faster than the other two. Let me give you this example. You might have a situation where you want to do something like this, right? Let's say you're a middle area that you want to grow faster than the other, right? You want to expand more. So you can do that as well. It's got a tomato background. Wow. I did not know you can give a tomato background, but okay. So here you can actually say, you know, if I have multiple items, I can say item 1, item 2, you can give because it's a list. Let's say if I give this 5, it would grow faster than anybody else. You can see it's 5 times more bigger than this, right? So I don't even have to give it a size. I just said, this one grows 5 times larger, which means when I expand, everything expand, but this one is 5 times the other size, right? So, and you can find a lot of these examples online. It's pretty cool. I remember I used to work for this company. What they would do is they have this template website, and one day, what was that? Hurley. So Hurley. I think, this website. I think originally I built this. I think probably 10. I think it's been like 10 years ago. I think they probably changed it. I don't know. A lot of things changed. But I had done their CSS, and then in old days, you can see how you see uh, how things are automatically see the menu start showing and all that stuff, right? Um, so this one, um, in those days when I built it, they, to achieve that was a challenge because there was no flex. There was not even Bootstrap wasn't even, well, I think Bootstrap might be there, but we were not allowed to use it or something. Or maybe it was very primitive. I don't remember. I don't remember. But I did in a pure CSS with lots of calculations and all that stuff. It was just so painful. I think I spent probably 4 to 5 days just to, you know, rearrange stuff. And then later on they said, oh, we want to add another menu item. and then I had to do all the recalculate everything, right? Flex, I would have done it like in 5 minutes. So this is the power of Flex. I mean, this is obviously responsive, but you know, you can see um, you know, how it works. Cool. Yeah. So that's pretty much it on Flex. Any questions? I just wanted to give you this intro because what happens is that as you build, uh, you know, your application, one of the challenges is going to be how you arrange things, right? So I would highly recommend, if you're just using pure CSS, use this. If you're using Bootstrap, obviously Bootstrap provides this feature as well, right? So you can use that as well.
So will we need these skills for the final application building?
I mean, the skill is, I wanted to show you. So let's say if you build, you know, for 162, if you build, let's say, some final app, right? Then you would need some skills to, you know, arrange your elements. Um, let's say one of the games I was thinking would be, let's say Hangman. Let's say game JavaScript, right? Let's say you build this game Hangman, and you know you have these buttons, right? And you want to arrange them, and you know it's using Flex, right? So you might need this skill. This is just the one. Let's say if you will build a tic-tac-toe game, and you have this, you know, you would need the Flex skills to build it. So it basically helps you build better HTML or control things inside the HTML, right? That's the beauty of the Flex. This is a cool game, actually. You have 10 lives and then you can build it. So Premier League, Chelsea or something. I don't know. I don't follow football, but anyway. Yeah, this could be an interesting game to build. Yeah. So, but as I said, you know, this skill is very helpful. So instead of like giving you a premiere on, you know, pure HTML, if you want to like style something, you can always Google things, right? I want to have a background color, or I want to have a tomato background, whatever. You can Google it and you'll find it. But it's really hard to find things when I say I want this element here, this in the middle, right? You need that skill of layouting skill. And so Flex would give you the layouting skill. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Angie.
I was just wondering, going back to the example of the parent and the number two, I mean the two child that you have in the other pen box.
In this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you want to build something inside this div container, the twos,
Okay. Yeah.
would you create a new div inside there?
Okay. So every time you want, that's a good question. Every time you want children to align the certain ways, it's always like a parent to children relationship. It doesn't apply to grandchildren. Okay.
Okay.
So let's say if I have this two, let me remove this middle, for example. Okay. So mm, Okay, so this is on the left side, right? Now, what I want to do is the 2 should have its own children, right? But they are, let's say, in a column, right? So what I would do is I would have its own children. So let's say div, let's call this 3, okay? And 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3. So I have a 3. Let me arrange them so they look. Okay, so the second child has its own children, right?
Yeah.
So like this, right? Okay, so in order for this to work, you can see that it doesn't follow the regular, the FEX rule. So what I have to do is I'm gonna add another class here, right? So I'm gonna call this 2, okay? And if I want to apply style, because child applies to all, because I say class child, which means whatever I have a class child, this applies everywhere, right? So the red border is all 3 child, right? So I can create another one called 2. And then for this one, I can say, because if I want to control its children, I have to say display flex. Okay. When I do that, you can see the 2's children are also now, are lying in certain ways, right? Let me give a little bit of width. So I'm gonna say width is, let's say, 500 pixels, so I can see things a little bit more. Okay, so well, maybe 400. Okay, and oh, so not child. Sorry, my bad. This guy. Okay, and then so this way I can see that. And let me remove this border. Maybe make it green here so I can see this. And border 1 pixel, solid, red. Okay, so now I can see the child 2 and its own children, right? And then this one I can align the way I want. So let's say right now it's at the start. I can say flex direction, flex end, and then this is gonna go this side here. Oh, hold on, what happened? Flex direction, flex direction. Oh, oh, not the flex direction. Sorry. Justify content. My bad. Justify content. Flex end. Right. So it goes this side, right? I can say space between. So you can see it's only applies to this area, right? So this is how I can control area between this. So you can see there's no impact on outside world now, right?
Great. Thank you.
So yeah, and I can make them column as well. Flex direction column. So they become like this, right? So there are a lot of things you can do. But again, as I said, it only applies to it's only a parent-child relationship, which means every time you do this, where is that, the other thing?
Nesting?
Yeah, so in here, right? So let's say this blue area is a parent, and then green are children, right? So this one will be flex, and then I can, whatever direction I apply applies to green. Now, if I want to apply something to this red area, this is my parent, right? Then I would say, oh, this is a column, right? Align this. For black, the blue areas are the children, right? So you you just control parent to child, and then for every children you have to control the children inside, like that, right? So break your application into smaller containers, and each container you would have some children, and then you can control children from parent, basically.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any more questions? Practice is needed, right? What I would suggest is think of some layout, what you wanted to build, and you know, just just build it. For example, um, you can build. So okay, so let's say if I want to build something like this, right? So this is a layout. So you can say, okay, I want to build something like this, right? With flex, which means I need a parent. So this is my the whole parent has, you know, you need a flex column, right? Flex direction column, which will have three children. Sorry, four children. One, oops. Header would be one child, navigation menu would be one child, then the whole this area would be one child, and then footer would be one child, right? And then uh, this area would have three children, right? But this is in a row. And then you have a width accordingly, and then this is how you can build your and then you can apply the grow and all that, right? If you want the if you want this to grow bigger than the other ones or whatnot, right? So in a responsive manner. So this is the one way to learn something, right? You can build exactly like this because most of the websites are like this, right? So you can look at different layouts and say, hey, you know, this is how I want to build. Uh, you might have something like this layout, right? A lot of products, and you know, you might have this layout, and you can say, okay, how am I gonna build this, right? But again, you can see if you can start drawing those containers and then start defining your parent-child relationship all across, then you'll start, you know, understanding it. Basically breaking now bigger problems to smaller ones, right? And then aligning it. Because oftentimes when we see something big, you you get really uh, your brain stop working. How am I gonna do this, right? Uh, but if you can strategically break this into smaller pieces, then you just have to control the smaller pieces, and then um, that's how that's the best way to build it. Most of the experienced web developers uh, take the design, breaking into the smaller pieces, build those smaller pieces. Oftentimes reusable smaller pieces. Like if you build something in React, you can build those reusable ones. So then you just have to build once and then reuse again, right? So yeah. Uh, Yeah, for example, you can build something like this, right? You already have build a imagine you want to build your own website. Let's say you want to build Angie's website, right? Then you would say, okay, what kind of product I'm going to sell, right? And then you create a logo, you have some sort of text, and then I'm assuming some of you taking design class, right? Go use your design skills and build it, and then materialize that using in an HTML and CSS. Yeah. There's also CSS Grid, which is a competitor of Flex. It's called CSS Grid. I would say this is a next level. This is also native to CSS. Okay, but even I don't use it. But this is the next level stuff. This is only when you build like really complex stuff that is two-dimensional, right? You can use this. But again, Flex and Grid are like a competitor. You can do the same thing, but if you can see, the syntax is a little bit complex, and even I don't bother to use this. I mean, I've been telling myself for past 2-3 years that I'm gonna learn one of these days, the CSS Grid, right? But I just don't have time for this. But it's pretty cool as well. Yeah, you can do a pretty cool stuff using CSS grids. Yeah, if you're interested. But yeah, I would just say start with Flex first. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else? Any questions? Awesome. So I think your homework is finish the froggy page. Go through there are 24 levels, right? It's self-explanatory, right? You just have to trial and error, and you will learn all the way. So go through 24 levels of froggy box, and I think it's pretty cool. All right. So Professor, should we just decide how the structure is going to be moving forward?
Yeah, like today the class went 6:37. I think it would be very heavy for the students to start another class right now. I don't know
Yeah.
how they feel. So I was thinking moving our class to Tuesday, so that way the students that are in this one don't get overwhelmed with all the things that you learned today, and also the class doesn't get super rushed to. I don't know how do you guys feel? Like how many students we have here from my class? The 168. You can choose. Oh, okay. Okay. What about we have another student? We can also maybe do it on Monday. That works better.
Yeah, I think not everyone's here who usually joins, but I think it's pretty close, I would say. I think maybe 1 or 2 missing who usually joins, basically, because everyone else just does on their own.
Okay, so Angie, you can on Tuesday because the time, or are you in another class?
Yeah, I have another 2 classes and they actually overlap.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't want to overlap this one.
So maybe how long? So I think from moving forward, what I want to do is only maybe 1 hour. So
Okay.
5 to 6, right? This way it's not too overloaded for student. And you
Yeah.
can do 6 to 7.
How do you guys feel about that?
Yeah, I like that.
Do the other students well?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay.
Is there a way to have it even earlier? That will be even amazing.
You mean from 4 to do you guys
Yeah,
like that if we have it earlier? I can
because it gets close to dinner and all those things.
Okay. Unfortunately, as Thursday night, I could do. Yeah, I think I could do 4 to 5.
That would be wonderful.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't mind doing 4 to 5. The only thing is, I think if you don't want to have gaps, or maybe we can have half-hour break, so then whoever's taking both can have a half-hour gap. So let's say I do
Okay.
4 to 5, and then there's just in case if you go a little over, so then there's no collision, right? And then the next class would be 5:30 onwards.
So yeah, which one did you prefer, Professor Hamiel? I can
Yeah,
do earlier if you want. I can do
yeah.
earlier.
Oh, you want to do 5? You want to do 4 to 5?
I can do that.
Okay,
Yeah,
let's
that's
do
okay.
that. Okay, then I can do 5:30 to 6:30. How about that?
Yeah, that way we give you time in case you're work or something.
Yeah. Because my work might creep into, if I have to go to office and come back, and if I hit some traffic, right? So,
Oh yeah, that's fine. I don't mind. So I can do what, 4 to 5? That's what you
yeah.
said?
Okay, can we do like Tuesday 4 to 5 then? Probably it won't be a problem for Angie then.
How are you, Angie? She's still there.
Yeah, just a second.
Tuesday 4 to 5 or Thursday?
I just have classes on Tuesday from 4 to 9 p.m. So it's actually a little
Oh, okay. Yeah, we can do Thursday from 4. So what we can do, Professor, then is that I will send my link for my Zoom, the Peralta link,
Okay.
and that way, like you're not rushing
Yeah.
to listen,
No, yeah.
It's easier.
Separate links is fine because then we're not depending on each other's link, right? So yeah.
Okay, cool. So I will see you then on Thursdays from 4 to 5. We hope we'll try to wrap it up at 5. We might go a little over 10 minutes, but I will do my best to give you a break. Like, yeah, between the 2 classes, and then you just jump to the next one. They would be the same link for this class, the 162.
Yeah, so the 5:30 to 6:30 class is the same link. And then yeah.
Yeah, 168 will have a new link.
Yeah, we'll send out
Yeah.
a message in Canvas and also on Discord. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Well, okay.
Okay, so we good that we sorted that out.
I will set the new link. Awesome. Okay, cool.
All right. Yeah, so I hope you guys enjoy this class because this is my favorite. Flex is my favorite. As I said, when I started, I was struggling with CSS, and this kind of opened my eyes. So most of the companies, if you use CSS, they use Flex. Very few use the grid, but yeah.
So something that I really like is that we don't need to add anything external. You just start doing it. So
Yeah.
that's pretty cool, because sometimes you don't set up that right and it doesn't work, and you're troubleshooting, and yeah.
It's all native, right? So you don't need any other library or something. Yeah, like Bootstrap, which requires extra. I mean, it's Bootstrap is different in many level, right? It's not only layouting, but it has a lot more, right? So I would not necessarily compare with this. They have different use cases, but
Yep.
this is really good if if you are, this kind of gives you a thing. You can pretty much build anything with this one if you plan it properly, right? So that fear of like, oh, how do I do this? When you look at a web page, most people don't know where to start, right? You need to always start with the design, then break it into smaller pieces, and then plan, okay, this is going to be start or end or middle, whatnot, right? Because it's not a lot. You have only 2 or 3 properties that you're playing with, right? Flex direction, justify content, align items, and then there are a few other things that you gonna so if you use it regularly, it becomes a second nature. You don't really have to think about it. Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah. All right. Yeah. And I'll send you guys a recording. Probably gonna take maybe a half hour or so after. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's right. Raisa, that's exactly right. Yeah. That's the right timing. Yeah. Awesome. See you guys next week then.
Hi. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.